You guys ever heard of Tim Pool? Tim's middle name Pool. He's a person who does the YouTubes. Now I don't hate Tim as much as other people seem to do. I just think it's kind of annoying having to hear him say, "This country is falling apart" every other show that he does, every other podcast that he does 5 times a week. So I kind of stopped watching him because of that recently. But regardless, I decided to check out one of his episodes last week-ish. I think maybe it was this week. I honestly do not remember. And they were talking about Dune, the new movie that came out. The movie by, I honestly actually don't even know who directed it. Jodorowsky didn't do it. David Lynch didn't do it either. Tim's opinion on the movie made me so upset that I decided to make a video about it because, he's dumb. You got dumb movie opinions, Tim. This is the first time Tim's shared his dumb movie opinions, but it is the first time I don't fall for them. The first one was that he claimed that the second Wonder Woman movie was so laughably bad that it was actually enjoyable to watch, which was not true at all. It was terrible. I watched it with my girlfriend, and we were just really, really bored, and I lost my movie picking privileges for like 2 weeks after that. Yeah, that was fun. Then he was like, when WandaVision came out, he was like, "Oh, you could skip the first 3 episodes. Nothing happens." So when my girlfriend was like, "Hey, let's watch the show," I was like, I don't think I want to watch it. But guess what? I actually had fun. I enjoyed myself. And no, don't skip the first episode. That's the best episode. It goes from a sitcom, funny, haha sitcom from the 50s to a Hitchcock movie and like that. That was cool. That was about it. That was like the only thing I could actually like recommend to somebody else. Be like, hey, there's actually some merit to that. That one scene. Everything else was like, I enjoyed it, but anyway. Anyways, this movie isn't about WandaVision. It's about the Dune. So the like one of the first thing he brings up is that there's this one character. I don't remember what name of the character is. Idaho? I think he says his name is Idaho. I don't remember anybody by the name of Idaho, but okay. He's saying like, oh, the person's saying he wants to go with this other person, and then the other person says no, but then they go with him anyways.
Here's the first complaint that someone said to me after we left was like, wait a minute, that whole scene where he's talking to Idaho and he's like, I want to go with you, and he's like, you can't. And then he has another scene where he's like, Dad, I want to go, and you can't. And then he goes anyway, and it's kind of glossed over. Like, what was the point of that scene?
I, honest to God, don't remember this scene ever transcurring at all. I kind of maybe remember the main character being like, Dad, I wanted help, and his dad being like, no, you got to do this instead. But then eventually he does go with his father, but it's not like immediately after. Like it's like a different occasion of them going out and doing stuff. I think I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure Tim just doesn't know how to pay attention, but we'll get into him not paying attention in a little bit. Here's the second point. Tim says you have to know the story to be able to enjoy this movie. Here's him saying it.
The cinematography was fantastic. The music was fantastic. It was beautifully made. But you had to know the story to enjoy it.
I went into this movie completely blind. I know nothing about Dune before watching this movie. I knew 2 things, actually, not nothing. I knew 2 things. 1, George Lucas may or may not have stole some elements of it. And 2, sandworms. And 3, Jodorowsky wanted to make a movie a long time ago, but he never did. And I didn't not enjoy it. We'll get into my feelings about the movie in a second after I destroy Tim's argument. Tim mentions that if you didn't know the story beforehand, you're just going to be completely lost and confused about what's going on and what's whose house's name and whatnot.
But you had to know the story to enjoy it. So I'm sitting there with my girlfriend, and we're talking about it, and she's like, did I miss something? Like, what's the word they're saying? What's the name of the houses? Like, why is this one bad? Why did they why did they do this? We were confused halfway through as to what was going on.
I'm not a super genius. Evidently, I wasn't confused at any point of the movie. Maybe I just misunderstood stuff or something. I was never confused. Here's the gist of it. There's this spice stuff that like makes you go fast in space or makes you high. And there's these people who are like harvesting it, and it's like negatively affecting this other group of people who are from the planet. Then those people who are harvesting it get told by the Emperor, no more of that. Then this other family comes in to do it. And then they're like, we know this means like we're going to get in trouble with the first guys because they're petty. So we got to like team up with the sand people and stuff like that. The Emperor's a douche. and then the first family kills the other guy and stuff like that. It was pretty simple to understand. Tim mentions like, oh, what's the name of the family? Who cares? You could replace the names. You can be like, this is family A, this is family B. You wouldn't be like confused with it, you know? You don't gotta memorize the name. I don't even know what the names are. I know it's bad family and good family. That's it. And then there's some other ones. Who cares? They don't even matter. Not now. Hopefully eventually they'll matter. I don't know. I don't know Dune. What? Why does that matter? That's stupid. There's the bad guys and the good guys. It's really obvious. Batista's the bad guy. Obviously. Look at him. You don't need to know his name. I don't even know his name. I don't remember the first guy's name. I don't know. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like, okay, here's an example. I never remember the names of anything in the Lord of the Rings, but visually I know which guys are the good guys and which guys are the bad guys. Remember the king who's like old and decrepit because there's a guy talking in his ear, but then he's not old and decrepit? I don't remember any of their names. I know who's the bad guy, who's the good guy, though. Like, what? Who cares what the names are? That's stupid. It's a stupid argument. Tim gets confused by a lot of things, apparently. He just keeps on mentioning how confusing things were.
I'm sitting there with my girlfriend, and we're talking about it, and she's like, did I miss something? Like, what's the word they're saying? What's the name of the houses? Like, why is this one bad? Why did they why did they do this? We were confused halfway through as to what was going on.
Danger the worm.
Instead, it was a very slow beginning that was kind of confusing, and the voice, and, it's like...
They were really straightforward, all things considered. There was a lot of stuff, so you could get lost in the stuff if you weren't paying attention. If you had a short attention span, maybe, possibly, no, but it wasn't that confusing. Their guest, I don't remember his name, their guest of the show was like, people like Dune because of how complex and stuff like that it was, so... Yeah.
I haven't seen the movie, but the book and the whole lore and everything that goes into the series of Dune books are known for being complex. I mean, and that's what people enjoy about the books. And I can totally see where that doesn't translate easily. It certainly didn't translate easily for David Lynch.
No, his inner monologue stuff was terrible.
I would say that they translated that well from the original work. As someone who hasn't read the original work, I'm saying this, so I could be completely wrong. But, there was some stuff, and I was like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. I like this. It's intriguing. But Tim disagrees with that.
People keep saying, you just can't handle it because they were trying to cram too much in at once. And I'm like, they didn't cram anything in.
Tim also, Tim calls this film an art film.
So slow and drawn out that it was just like, look, if you want to see part one of an art film, I got no problem with that. I just don't like it.
Which is... laughable to me. The only thing that this film has in common with an art film is its length, and even that it's like, oh, are you serious? Art film, really? Tim mentions that the music was pretty good and the cinematography was pretty good. I wouldn't say it's not, but it wasn't memorable. I can't remember any like impressive shot or any like piece of music that made me go like, wow, this is really good. I'm not saying they were bad, but it was just kind of like, it was okay. It suited the movie. It was good, but it wasn't like, ooh, I remember that. Here, we could compare this to another movie I saw recently for the first time, Alien. That was a really good movie. I remember the shot with the fingers, which is like, that was memorable. Remember the shot when they're looking for the alien and they hold the shot for a really long time? And it's like, not the alien, the face hugger. And you're like, whoa, what's going on? That was pretty cool. That was memorable. I don't really remember any of the shots in this movie. That's not saying it's bad, but just not as strong as Tim would imply. Perhaps. I don't know. Tim mentions how slow this movie was. This is kind of like a like perspective kind of thing. Like, this is kind of like a subjective thing, because I mean, objectively it is a long movie, but how like long it feels is a subjective thing. You know what I'm saying? So there's movies that are actually shorter than this movie that feel longer. For example, Stalker. Stalker's I think like an hour 40 minutes, something like that. It feels like it's 2 hours and a half. And is it an hour 40? Let me check. What? Stalker is 2 hours 40? Stalker feels like a 3-hour movie. And at least to me, Dune just felt kind of like a normal movie. I don't know. This is kind of like a subjective thing. I didn't feel like it stretched on forever and ever like Stalker does. But they're both about the same length, so that's kind of like just a mute I don't know what the word is. Doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying. Tim says that nothing happens in this movie. No, things definitely happen. They go to the planet. They go with the spice. The dad dies. There's a whole conflict. He bites the thing. Stuff he trains at the beginning. The whole explanation at the beginning with the spices and stuff. Stuff happens. You know, here's an example of something actually not happening on screen from Stalker again. Check out this scene. I've sped this up. I don't know how long the scene is. I don't remember offhand, but this is just people riding a train. Just riding a train, just staring and existing. This is an example of something actually not happening. Unlike Dune, where stuff is happening, but Tim just didn't pay attention. Allegedly. And this is probably the biggest point for me in Tim's criticism. Timothy Poole did not watch the entire movie. He left somewhere in the midpoint, according to him.
After an hour and 20 or so minutes, I was just like, I'll just read what happened. I'll just read. I'd rather just read this. I can't watch this. It's so slow and drawn out. And I look over, my girlfriend's sleeping. And then I'm like, hey, you want to leave? She's like, yeah. And then I get up, I'm like, Luke, we're leaving. He's like, all right. And then we went and got hibachi. It was great.
That's cool. Now, no movie is entitled to anybody's time. If you feel like it's not entertaining you and you want to turn it off or leave the theater, that's you. You should do that. You shouldn't, if you don't want to, okay. But then maybe don't criticize it on your podcast when you haven't watched the whole thing. Also, if you're going to criticize it on your podcast, maybe you should actually watch it, like pay attention. I'm not saying that Timothy just doesn't know how to sit down, be a good boy, and watch a movie. But that's what happened. His friend Ian, who hasn't watched the movie, said this.
I didn't see it, but if you're going to do Dune, you got to give the main guy his power within 20 minutes and then get him off the planet within 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then make it pure action from there. Andreas pointed out, you have the giant sandworm in the beginning trying to destroy a fleeing ship. You got to show the worm. I mean, that's the biggest part of the whole series is the worms, the sandworms.
Now, I don't know if Ian's dumb or Ian's a big-brained here, because I don't know how the story unfolds, but he said 20 minutes. He understands 3-act structure. You know, usually the first act ends around the 20-minute mark. So Ian Smart Boy, maybe, unless he's dumb. I don't know how the story goes, finishes, completes itself. So, but it sounded like he was kind of smart. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know how the story ends. That's the whole problem. So it could be that he needs to stay on the planet longer, and maybe the last act is him leaving the planet. But I don't know, because I don't know how the sandworms would be so important then, because he mentions the sandworms is really important to the story. But if you're leaving the planet, do they take sandworms with them? Can they live outside sand? I don't understand. So I can't really, I don't know. Is Ian big brained or is Ian dumb? I don't know. Free the code. Free the code, Ian. So yeah, let's just get into what I think about the movie, just to like compare and contrast. I think the biggest critique about this movie that you could bring up, or one of the biggest at least, is the casting. I'm so surprised that nobody brought this up while discussing this. Pretty much everybody who's in this movie has either been in a Star Wars movie, a movie about superheroes, or a movie about statutory rape. It's incredibly distracting. They're all people I know from other movies, and while I'm watching that, I'm thinking, that's an actor. I don't see the character, I see the actor there. Because there's so many well-known actors. They really needed to bring in a cast that nobody knew, but they couldn't do that because then no one's going to watch the movie. Those people are there, so, you know, people will be like, hey, I know that actor, I want to watch that movie now. With the actors there, it's almost like a guarantee that some amount of people will go and watch this. But it's distracting. Even this guy. I don't remember what he's in, but he's in stuff. I've seen him in stuff. I thought it was intriguing. I thought the movie was intriguing. At one point, I was like, this is interesting. I want to see how this ends. It seems like an interesting story. I like it. It's not stupid. I enjoyed it, mostly. Again, cinematography, decent. Music, decent. Good job, José Luis.
A ver, ¿qué Hans Zimmer ni qué hostias? Se llama José Luis y es ¿de dónde? ¿De Ciudad Real, creo? Es un fraude. Lo conocemos desde hace 7 años y no sabe solfeo, no sabe componer, claro, no sabe tocar el piano. No sabe hacer absolutamente nada.
The acting was decent as well. I don't think anybody did an amazing job. I don't think anybody did a terrible job, at least that I can remember. Again, I've only seen this movie once. I didn't want to rewatch it for this video because I feel like that would be cheating. So I have some egg on my face right now because while I was watching Tim's video live, I don't know how I missed this, but during the whole thing, I was like, why aren't people mentioning this one fact? And then when I rewatched the video to prepare for this video, he actually does mention this. I don't know how I missed it. I don't know, maybe my internet like messed up and it jumped. I don't know. But he essentially brings up the fact that this movie is pretty much just the first act and the beginning of the second act by saying it like this.
Imagine this is what someone said. If you like Star Wars: A New Hope and you want to watch a 2 hour and 40-minute movie that's just Luke in the desert and it ends with him finally meeting Han Solo, that's Dune the movie.
Oh, jeez.
But that's basically what it was. You
One
know,
of these days they're gonna do
the
it
hero.
right.
He's not it's the hero's journey, but he's not thrust into adventure until the movie's over.
And that's one of the biggest things against this movie. It's just like the beginning of an arc. It's just the beginning of the first act and the very, very beginning of the second one. And then it ends. If you don't know what that means, it means that the movie doesn't feel like it starts until the very end, then it stops. And you're like, wait, there should be more stuff here. But it isn't there. Both me and my girlfriend basically said, like, yeah, I can't really say an opinion about this until the rest of it comes out, because, you know, maybe it's stupid, and it's like, oh, that was a waste of time, or maybe it's actually really good. I was like, okay, those 2 hours and 40 minutes were actually worth it. I didn't feel like I wasted my time. I don't know. Someone's probably going to make, once they finish the movies and stuff, somebody's going to make a really cool fan edit that edits it down to like a reasonable time, and it's going to be like, hey, you could have just done one movie. Maybe not. Probably. It's not going to be me. I'm not going to do that. I'm not the hero that nobody wants or needs. I will push back on Tim a little bit. The way he says it makes it sound like very few things happen. It's like stretched out. Like if you can't stretch out the first act of Star Wars to 2 hours and 40 minutes because there's just not enough there. Like, and in Dune there is stuff being said, even though he says nothing happens and it doesn't matter, whatever. No, there's things being explained. Like they explain the spice. They explain like the harvesting of the spice in the first like 2 minutes.
Someone commented on Reddit. They were like, it should have opened with sandworms, so you understood the Dune. It should have the importance of the spice.
They explain the like druggy stuff about the spice and how the spice is used for space travel. They explain that the Emperor is a jealous man, and that's why he took out the first family. And he put in this specific other family because the rest of the houses kind of like look for them for guidance. He doesn't like that. They explain the voice a little bit. They get into that, which is definitely not what George Lucas stole and put into Obi-Wan's mouth in the first Star Wars movie. Definitely not that at all. Complete coincidence. Do not sue George Lucas.
Danger of the worm.
Instead, it was a very slow beginning that was kind of confusing, and the voice, and you know, it's like.
We see the sandworms. They're cool. I don't even think they actually say this verbally, but you know, if you make vibrations in the ground in a certain area of the world, sandworm will be like, I know something over there, and he goes and he eats it. I don't even think anybody says it aloud, but you see it visually. Maybe somebody did. I don't remember. Get a little side story with the maid servant guy who's like, he has my wife. I'm sorry I had to do it, but don't worry. You're gonna put a thing in your tooth. You're gonna bite it down. He's gonna die. A lot of stuff happens. Just because somebody didn't pay attention doesn't mean that stuff didn't happen. Stuff definitely happened. I honestly don't feel like any scene was wasted, to be completely honest. Maybe somebody can make the argument that it was wasted. I don't feel like it was. And while I was watching this, I wasn't like, come on, let's hurry it up. I felt like every scene had a purpose and a reason for being there, and it wasn't just filler. I don't feel like they wasted their time. They probably could have made a 3-act story with the time they were given, but they decided not to. I don't know why. I'll just have to wait and see if it was worth the wait or not. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, Tim just didn't watch the movie. That's just the truth. He just didn't watch the movie. He only watched about half of it, and the half that he did watch, I don't know how you can't pay attention or figure out what's going on. I don't know how. It wasn't that complex. There was a lot of stuff, but it wasn't like confusing like he said. I don't know. I don't really know how to argue this other than pay attention, sir. I watched it with my girlfriend. My girlfriend doesn't speak English. Watch it with subtitles. And, subtitles, they can sometimes go by pretty fast. You're like, I missed it. I'm sure she understood the movie better than Tim did. Tim could have watched closing his eyes. He should have been able to get what was going on. My girlfriend's got to be like this. And she understood, and she wasn't like, what's going on? This is so confusing. So, what's up, Tim? I don't understand. So, yeah, I think that's about it. Should you go watch this movie? I don't know if I could actually recommend this to people. Just because it's not a complete story. So, when we finished the movie, my mind immediately went to the first Lord of the Rings. Because the first Lord of the Rings ends, and you know that there's more story, it hasn't finished, but you don't feel like you're missing something necessarily. It feels like a complete movie. And Dune does not feel like a complete movie. It definitely feels like there's still stuff that you need to see to be actually able to critique it in its completion. There is arguably, technically, a 3-story arc in this movie itself. Maybe you can definitely make that argument for the first Lord of the Rings movie. Whereas in the first Lord of the Rings movie, the second act begins when Frodo starts to bring the ring to, I don't remember the name of the place, but with the elves. And then the second act of the whole, overarching story starts when Frodo says that he'll take it to Mordor. I don't know when the second act of this Dune standalone movie would start. Maybe around the time they've seen the sandworms, but that's kind of like towards the end. Maybe when they go to the planet, but nothing really changes, or not enough stuff changes to be able to say this is the second arc. He's still with his dad, he's still with the stuff, he's just in a new place. But he wasn't really called to adventure, he was more like, you're gonna go. And he wasn't like against it or wanting to go. It's kind of like a thing that happened to him. So does that count? I don't really know.
Right, so while I was editing this video, I just started to think a little bit more about the 3 acts of this standalone movie, and I will say that I feel stronger about the fact that there is 3 acts in this movie. Once I reminded myself of the scene with the voice, and he goes to see the old woman, and he's tested and all that stuff. I think that is like I forget what it's called, but the passing of the doorway. That's not the real term, but it's the point where you go to some new. I feel like that's like enough change, both that and him going to the planet, which would indicate the second act. I think it's fair to say that there was a 3-act structure here. It's just not as noticeable, or it's a little more subdued in compared to the overarching one that are going to be in the movies. Because again, it definitely feels towards the end like the movie's starting up, just like any other movie. Like the story's starting up, here we go, and then it just gets cut off. So again, you don't feel that strongly in Lord of the Rings, in my opinion. So despite the fact that it is present in this movie, once you think about it for a second, the fact that you don't feel it as well developed is a problem, I would say. So, but I feel a lot more strongly towards there actually being one, and I appreciate it a lot more now. So, yeah, it's a thing to keep in mind. I was reminded of Jordan Peterson just because of the parallels that the ending, or the last third of the movie, have with the story of Horus, the Egyptian god. If you're not familiar, it's just basically the Lion King, where the king is killed by his brother, in this case his cousin, and the child has to flee essentially to hell. In the case of Lion King, he flees by himself, but in the case of the story of Horus, his mother is the one that flees, and then she gives birth to him while in the underworld, and he grows up there, and eventually comes back and avenges his father. I can only assume that's going to happen in Dune, because the bad guy didn't die. Pretty interesting. It was pretty cool. I kind of wish I would have mentioned it during the normal video. It kind of sucks.
And at what point would the third act begin? When I guess you could say when they start attacking his family, but then there's no really conclusion to that. It's kind of muddy. And in the first Lord of the Rings, you could say that the third act is like when they're getting attacked, and what's his face is like, give me the ring, like all that like kind of scene, all that part of the movie. That's like the third act. You can definitely feel it. You don't feel a 3-act structure in this singular movie. So that's definitely a point against this movie. So I enjoyed it. I would want to watch it again, but only when the next movie comes out, and to be able to like watch it all together. Hopefully it pays off. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully. Because I would like to see it succeed. I think Tim is wrong. I don't understand how he could be this wrong, but he just is wrong. It takes effort to not pay attention that hard, I guess. Anyways, that's the end. This video was really...
All right, so I can't believe I missed this, but the super chat that started Tim's whole rambling about this movie pretty much says exactly what I say, but just in a more concise way. It's pretty funny because I'm glad I'm not the only one who noticed.
Quiet Guitarist Fan says, by the way, I never read the book. I'm assuming he's talking about Dune. And I actually understood it from beginning to end. It's really not that hard, dude. It's hilarious how easy it is to understand if you just pay attention. Once again, MCU theme parks.
Yeah, ain't that funny? Even this guy's like, yep, just pay attention, Tim. Ain't that confusing? I don't know anything about the story, and I understood. What's the matter with you, Tim? All right, that's the end of the video. Peace out, guys.